lawyers need to be put at first priority because if you do it wrong, it's wrong and it breaks the law, right? So our comments or our suggestion must be taken seriously. But actually, in real world, it doesn't work like that. I study at Chulalongkorn University, but I always respect Thammasat University and their students. During my third year, I got a scholarship from Ministry of Finance. So that's why after graduation, I had to work with them for 2 years before got another scholarship for master degree, which I chose to study at University of Chicago because their origins of law and economic studies. And I work for Ministry of Finance. I grew familiar with economics and also economists working there. That's why I started to have interest in law and economic study. After graduating from University of Chicago, I came back to work for Ministry of Finance for almost 5 years, and I just resigned during COVID. So to know more about my work in Ministry of Finance, I work for the Fiscal Policy Office. In Thai name, it is สำนักงานเศรษฐกิจการคลัง or สสค or FPO, which is the think tank of Ministry of Finance. So basically, I work as a policy maker rather than as a lawyer. And I started to grow interest in fintech during that time because during the Kun Apisak time as a minister, he implemented lots of financial infrastructure. For example, like prompt pay and also national digital ID. During COVID-19, SOSOK was responsible for measures like เราไม่ทิ้งกัน and เราชนะเราเที่ยวด้วยกัน Personally, I don't think policy maker should do. It's not good for public for long term, to just disburse money and make people getting familiar with, getting money freely from the government. And it will destroy the characters that we want to build in Thai people, like saving money for, emergency. So this contradicts with my principle. So that's why I resigned from MOF. And after leaving MOF, I decided to join the SCG, Siam Cement Group of Poon Cement Thai. At SCGs, I work a lot of projects in ESG. And after gaining experience both in banking sector and also the capital market sector, it was my time to have another skill, which is the management skills. So I decided to join a startup within the K-Bank Group. That organization, which is T2P. I learned a lot about, leading the team, and also I got opportunity to do another function that I have no experience before, which is compliance. And it's very important to grow in fintech area. You must have experience both in legal and in compliance. And T2P gave me that opportunity to, work in compliance as well. And right now, I just joined another fintech startups expand from Singapore, which is the Credivo Group. They leverage the alternative credit data to calculate the credit worthiness of the customers.
What inspired you to specialize in fintech?
I am not tech savvy. I think most people misunderstand that if you want to work in fintech area, you must be tech savvy, which is not true. I'm not. I think for working, it's fun. I mean, you get to know things that never happened before in the market. Working with business people who are tech savvy. It's very interesting because, they never treat lawyer as a first priority. So let me put it this way. So when you study law, most legal students and most lawyers always think that, okay, lawyers need to be put at first priority because if you do it wrong, it's wrong and it breaks the law, right? So our comments or our suggestion must be taken seriously. But actually, in real world, it doesn't work like that. You have to balance between the business needs and also the risk, the legal risk, which is, not 100% wrong. If you work in fintech area, business comes first. Profits comes first. And legal comes last. And it's very interesting how to balance those contradict values. You know what I mean? I have another degree in MBA as well. So I know what business persons want. And they don't have to always listen to lawyers. If lawyers want them to listen, you need to understand business and you have to provide them with several solutions.
So, hearing about your background in fintech, can you give us a breakdown of what a job in fintech typically looks like?
I never work in law firm. I always work as an in-house lawyer. So I work closely with business person and other functions of the company. For in-house lawyer, you need three different skills as a lawyer in fintech area. First one is, of course, legal. The second one, I think, is the most important skill. It's compliance. Actually, compliance and legal is totally different. Compliance oversee and give suggestion to the business that how to comply with regulations. We don't do any contract. We don't review any agreements. And we don't do, the court legal proceeding stops. Basically, for compliance, you need to know by heart about the regulations. And also you need to have good connections with regulators, which brings to the third skill. For Thai people, it sounds negative, but actually, for example, like in US, it's very normal to have this position in organization, which is the public relations officer or public policy officers. But actually, the function of the job is basically a lobbyist. Lobbyist doesn't mean that you have to, bribe the government officials or regulators. It doesn't work like that. You just need to know what they want. Like you can read, you must have to read their minds that, oh, if the regulators say A, B, C, D, E, they want X, Y, Z, for example. Because regulators, they will never say frankly to private sectors. In fintech organization, especially the small organization, which I think 90% of fintech company in Thailand right now is small organization. They hire only one person to do these three functions. So basically, you must have some familiar with the regulators. If you know someone in the MOF or BOT, the Bank of Thailand, not just know them, you have to know their policy stance. For example, like the current governor of Thailand, he has totally different policy stance from the previous one. And you must be updated with these kind of things. And also the economic situation and market situation, because everything affects the policy stance of regulators. And if you understand them, when you approach them with any requirements, you know how to communicate. And this is three skills that is very necessary for working in fintech area.
For the next part of the interview, we'll be talking more about your specialization. For students who are interested in entering this field, what is the most critical knowledge they should have mastered before they enter?
There is no specific knowledge that they should master. Like I said, I specialized in public law during my bachelor degree, and now I'm working in fintech area. I never took course in banking regulations in Chulalongkorn University. Never took course in capital markets because it's on the job training. You will never understand its landscape until you work with it, and it's impossible to teach it. I think this is the flaw in most legal students in Thailand. They always spend too much time on reading legal books to pass exams in university. There will be no time left to listen to economics news or financial news. When is the last time you read newspapers? Can you tell me? You need to have 50% of your time trying to catch up with what's going on in the world right now, in the market right now, what's US is doing, what's Europe is doing. The necessary knowledge is all out there, it's outside the law school. If I can give my suggestion for law students, try to have at least 10% of your time listening to Bloomberg, CNN, or if you're not familiar with English, I would say the standard morning wealth. I don't see any law schools in Thailand have class on compliance, which is very weird because compliance is very important. And interestingly, most organizations in Thailand right now, they hide compliance with no legal background. I've talked to some people that actually compliance deal a lot with regulations. Why don't you just hire lawyer to do it? They said that most lawyers don't have business acumen. And being a compliance person, you need to have the business acumen. You cannot say that, oh, these wordings of regulations say that you can do it, for example, because when business persons come to you and say that, oh, we want to do this, can we do it? No, you can do it. It doesn't work like that. You must say that, okay, it's better to do it this way. And you need some business acumen to give that kind of suggestion. That doesn't come from reading legal books. It comes from experience outside law school. And I think if law school can have the compliance class to give the law students a background of how compliance work, it would be very helpful if law students want to enter into this area.
What is your opinion on Southeast Asia's approach to regulating fintech compared to global standards?
For Southeast Asia, I think it's very easy to operate the fintech business in Southeast Asia, except Thailand. I have heard a lot that business persons always say it's the most difficult to get license from the BOT or from MOF because the financial regulations landscape in Thailand, it's very strict. And I think it's much more than even in US or Europe because US and Europe, they have like similar context to Singapore and Hong Kong. And it's more free in Singapore and Hong Kong to operate fintech business because if you go to Singapore and Hong Kong, you see that people there are not different that much compared to Thailand. In Thailand, we have like the people that can access financial service in any level. And we also have the people that only have basic bank accounts and also the people that have no access to financial service at all, which is called the unbanked population. And in the small countries like Singapore and Hong Kong and also the Europe and US, the unbanked population is not as high as Thailand. And I understand that the regulators and also the MOF in Thailand want to protect this group of people. That's why they regulate the financial service providers that strict, which I totally support. Actually, when my boss say, hey, why is it so difficult to deal with BOT? I mean, I never experienced any, back and forth questions with regulators this much, even in Singapore or Indonesia or Vietnam. Actually, inside, I was proud that BOT and MOF is like this because they know what to ask to protect the vulnerable group of people.
My next question is one that many young investors would find interesting, along with myself. What is your opinion on Bitcoin as an investment?
As an investment, have no objection. As an investor, you take your own risk, right? But I think for Thai people, not all of them have enough financial literacy to know what is the risk to invest in Bitcoin. Thai people have a very specific characteristic. That is, it's very easy to convince them with rich wordings. I think the regulators needs to focus more on providing financial literacy to Thai people, not just regulate the service providers. To answer your question, I have no objection for investing in Bitcoin as long as people is equipped with financial literacy.
For the next part of the interview, we'll be talking more about your professional advice for young law students. Are there any particular certifications or courses or skills that you think students should prioritize more in order to become more competitive in this field?
So I saw in your brief that you mentioned coding, finance, right? It doesn't mean that you have to have skills how the coding is conducted. You don't have to, write codes yourself, but you need to understand when people in different backgrounds talk. When you communicate with IT persons, they always communicate in the way that most people don't understand. That happens with, every education backgrounds, every careers. I think the most important skills is communicating skills. You need to understand what people want when they communicate with you. And to understand that, to have that kind of skills, you need to experience the knowledge outside law school as much as possible. It comes back to my first suggestion. Try and spend 10% of your time reading newspapers or listening to podcasts that have, IT persons, finance persons, or even management persons. Just get familiar with how they talk, how they communicate.
And do you recommend any type of specific work experience or internships that these students should look out for?
I'm not saying working in law firm is not good. I took my internship in law firm as well. So I kind of know how law firms work, and I work a lot with law firms as a in-house lawyer. But you need to understand that working in law firm doesn't provide you with skills to communicate with other functions of the company. And you won't see any small problems happening in the company that can have, a big effect. Because when the company goes to law firm, they will go with the big project or the big agreements because they pay a lot to seek advice from law firms. So they must make sure that it's very necessary to go to law firm. So working in law firm, you won't see any small problems happening daily. And you will never understand what business people want, what IT people want. So I would say working in fintech area, it's okay if you want to go to law firm in the future, like to make money, for example. But I would suggest that you take internships in, fintech organization or even in BOT because you need to get familiar with the regulators as well. And it's a plus if you go to the interview round with the fintech company and say that, hey, I know how the BOT works and I know the way MOF approved the license, for example.
How do you see the global fintech regulations, such as for cryptocurrency or for blockchain, shaping the legal profession or the fintech profession in upcoming years?
People always talk about the DeFi, right, in the past 3 years. Actually, it comes from the ideas happening after the hamburger crisis in 2008 in US. That hamburger crisis happened because of the weak regulations on banks and financial institutions. That's why people started to lose trust on the financial institutions and also the government. And then the person who wrote the Bitcoin white paper comes up with the idea that, hey, we can use blockchain to, verify the financial transactions. We don't need any financial institutions to be the middle person. It doesn't work that way because I still believe in fiat currency. It represents the economic situations of the country, of the nation. And everything needs to be evaluated, its value by something that is real, not just imagination. Like gold has value because it's limited, right? And the banknotes that we use today have values because they're backed up with valuable assets, for example, gold or other fiat currencies of other countries. So I think if we talk about the cryptocurrency that is not backed up with any fiat currency, which is we call the unstable coin, their values depends on imagination. It doesn't mean that it's not real. It's real, but it's very risky. So the imagination of people can fluctuate and the value can fluctuate as well. That's why we cannot rely on cryptocurrency 100%. It's good for investment if you can take risks, but to use it instead of fiat currency, I don't think it's workable. But DeFi, it leads to another solution, which I think most companies in the world right now are using. It's blockchain. And the blockchain is very useful to store information. But I don't think it's workable to verify financial transactions. in the end, you need government regulations, you need fiat currency, and you will need financial institutions no matter what happens. So I trust Bitcoin, I trust DeFi only for investment.
And based on your previous answers as well, what importance do you place on networking in this field? And do you think that students should prioritize networking to get success in this field?
Yeah, like I said, you need to get familiar with regulators. You need to know what inside their mind. I'm not saying you should, provide them with some benefits or something that's against the law. But by knowing their minds, you will understand more what they need. They always need something that is for public goods. So it will never contradict to your principle. Because if you want to work in financial sectors, you don't want to hurt anyone and you want to help, vulnerable people. And we are taught like that as a law students, helping vulnerable people. And that is exactly what regulators want. So if you know their minds, if you know their policy stance, you will always come up with the products that can benefit your own company and also the public goods. You need to equip yourself with knowledge from other areas as well. If you work in this area, you just need to be friendly. You cannot, go to work and then go home at 6 p.m. right away, never party, never hang out. Try to hang out with other people, try to, know other people, especially the IT persons. They drink a lot. I understand introvert persons, but sometimes you need to force yourself to be friendly.
Thank you so much. And that leads perfectly to our next question, which is how do you manage a work-life balance and what advice would you give to students on this?
You may be surprised if I share with you that I'm also business owner of the healthy bakeries. So basically, and I'm also studying the PhD degree in history in Chinese, which is not legal related at all. It's just my hobby. My schedule is packed, but to manage work-life balance, I think colleagues in the same organization helps a lot. If you have a good relationship with colleagues, they're always there to help you. If you don't understand anything, for example, I don't know what work-life balance for most people mean, but if you mean work only 9 to 5 p.m., after that, you don't have to touch your laptop at all. It's very unrealistic. Never expecting that if you want to be successful in your career. Work-life balance like that never exists in real world. And I heard a lot from Gen Z people that, we need work-life balance. We don't want to, go to the office 5 days a week. It's very unrealistic.
So we have reached the end of the interview with you now, and we have one last question for you. If you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice at the start of your career, what would it be?
I would tell myself to take class in other departments more, like economics or accounting. And I would tell myself not to spend too much time on legal books, on law books. And I should start to read news, Bloomberg, Financial Times, The Economist at the very start of the law student life, because I just started to, to read this kind of stuff during my time in Chicago. I got this idea from my Chilean friends. I remember that time she couldn't catch up the reading materials in class and the exam was approaching and she couldn't finish her preparations for exam. But still, I saw her reading the New York Times. So I asked her, why are you reading this? Why you still can't finish your exam preparation? She said that exam is not everything in your life. I mean, no one cares about your grades in the transcript. They care about your knowledge. And I was like, oh, that's correct. I mean, don't take this as advice to ditch your grades in transcripts. Okay, because you guys still don't have any work experience. So the best indicator of your knowledge is still the grades in your transcript. Focus on that first. but try to spend 10% of your time to explore other areas. And after you graduate from bachelor degrees and decide to, pursue the master degrees or even PhD, after you have some work experience, don't focus too much on your transcripts. No one cares about grades in your transcripts. They care only work experience and how you deal with problems happening in your working life. Oh, one more thing, not just listening to news. I mean, something that you think that is very bullshit, like reading comic books or playing games or watching movies, watching TV series is also very important because it's the elements that you can network with different kind of people. For example, my company's business partner right now is a Chinese company. And to deal with Chinese company to get the job done, you need to be friends with them. And how to be friends with them? You have to discuss about, Chinese TV series, Chinese actors, and even the Three Kingdoms. So reading these kind of things and spending time on these kind of things is never useless.